Please stay put, Havan said, leaning back to her and telling her to close the door. Here, we'll try this. And he eased the car out a little bit farther up the alley, sticking its nose, the nose of the BMW slightly out into the street. From here, we could see way down in either direction. Nothing was going on. A doorman paced in front of the Ritz-Carlton, and the neon light reflected off the windows of the store frames across the way. Reminds me of the old days, back in Havana, Chuck said, when it got too late for anybody's good. What was that like, Yvonne asked, the anger fading a bit from her voice. Havana, he replied. Yes, she said, back in the old days. Chuck turned the car off and glanced at me with a wry smile. In those days, Havana at night was the most beautiful place in the world, he said. Of course, it was corrupt and dangerous too, but you can't have everything, right? Everyone loves to harp on that now, and for God's sake, we knew it then too. But most of all, it was such a sight to behold, such a beautiful land when everyone came out to play. Why was that? Yvonne asked. What made it so special? Different strokes for different strokes, Yvonne. Billy and your mother used to go down to the harbor and watch the cars roll off the night ferry from Key West. I found myself nodding. Me, Chuck continued, I'd like to listen to Lola. She was my girl, or was supposed to be, or should have been. Anyway, she sang at the Riviera. For her last song of the night, she nearly always belted out Somewhere Over the Rainbow. By then, it was well into the wee hours of the night like it is now. The crowd had thinned out, sometimes hardly anybody left if it was the middle of the week, but she sang that song because she knew I liked it, and I always stuck around for the end of the last set. What happened to Lola? I couldn't help asking. You know, Billy, I don't rightly know. Last I heard, she was somewhere in Los Angeles, doing bit parts in pictures. It's how too many things play out, right? You think you have all the time in the world, that you'll stay in touch with the precious ones in your life forever. But it doesn't work out that way, does it? You lose track, and with each passing year, it becomes too difficult to find them, downright embarrassing to reach out. And by then, what's the point anyway? Yvonne said you could still find her. You could maybe call her. I don't think so, darling, Chuck said. That's your generation talking. With guys like your father and me, it ain't so easy. Even though we do it so much in our heads all the time. I mean, I can close my eyes and just like that, Chuck said as he snapped his fingers, I'm back to those late nights at the Riviera. Even at that hour, Lola often had some well-wishers, and I'd stay out of the way. I mean, what's a hick ball player bring to the table in those kinds of situations, right? And afterwards, I knew she'd like to freshen up, so I'd wait out by the backstage door, sitting there on the steps, probably smoking another Cuban stogie. Somehow, from that small alleyway, I could see all the way down to the water and the lights atop the Hotel Nacional. And that's where we often ended up. There was always time for a nightcap in Havana, right, Billy? Even if we were playing a doubleheader the next day. Always time for a nightcap, I agreed. And you know what I remember the most, Chuck continued? It's the smell of the sea. For even well off the Malecon, farther inland, even near the old Cologne Cemetery, you always knew you were close to the ocean in Havana. No matter how much was built up, I mean heap upon heap of mafia money and neon glow and big band music and foolish laughter, so many people carrying on. Through it all, the sea was always out there. It always seemed like it was only a few blocks away. I believe that's what made the town feel so full of ghosts. The sea breeze was always coming off the straits, holding everything so close to the heart. We grew silent inside the BMW, staring out upon the empty street to the night as it gathered around us. Everything Chuck had said was as true as anything can be. Closing my eyes, I was back there, walking along the Malecon in Havana at dusk. Once again, Melina Fonseca was on my arm as we gazed upon the dark waters, the dark expanse separating Cuba from Florida. How far, Melina would ask. It was a question she loved to ask, even though she knew the answer as well as I did. 90 miles from Havana to the Florida Keys, I'd say. Only 90 miles, she would repeat, as if it was the most important number in the whole wide world. And to think, we're almost there. Then she would smile, a sight I'll never forget. Papa, Yvonne said, somebody's out